start off with page 11, Ms. DeAndrea Walker. Amendment to a contract with Northeast Maryland Waste Disposal.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Good afternoon. The administration is requesting approval of an amendment to the county's existing intergovernmental agreement with the Northeast Maryland Waste Authority, Disposal Authority, to increase our compensation in order to implement recommendations that were included in our solid waste work group's final report. The proposed amendment, which will commence upon council approval, increases the maximum compensation for each contract by $2 million from $1.2 million to $3.2, and increases the maximum compensation by $40 million from $24 million to $64 million over the entire 19 years and 11-month term of this IGA. Just for some background, the authority is a regional organization that assists member jurisdictions with a variety of waste-related projects, including recycling, resource recovery, composting, landfill reviews, as well as solar power. The county has been a member jurisdiction of the authority since 1980, and our membership allows us to access the authority's publicly procured on-call consultant and engineering contracts that they have available that are competitively bid as well. It's a benefit to us to use their expertise and the assistance of their staff and the other member jurisdictions to help us with some of these procurements that we need to get done in order to implement some very special things around, specific things around solid waste. So additional services that we would be looking at again would be from the solid waste work group. One in particular that you all are very familiar with is the bulk trash program that we just implemented earlier this year in January. We used the authority for that. And the main reason that we're asking for an increase in the amount of funds that we can spend with the authority is so that we can implement those 5-year recommendations that have come across. Some of them included looking at organic materials, processing organic materials, our pilots that we now need to also start to implement. As you all know, there were about 19 recommendations that came from the solid waste work group. So that is the premise behind the ask for the increase yearly. We cannot spend the money unless it is in the budget. In addition, the auditors gave me a few questions that they thought were important to address to help better get some background on this request for approval. Would you like for me to read those now, or do you improvise?
That's
okay.
fine.
Okay, so one of the questions included, since council approval is not required for the various service contracts with the authority that the authority is procuring, what is the mechanism for county council oversight of the consultants and other contracts hired by the authority on behalf of the county? So all bid documents are available upon request from the council. So any of the bid documents that you all would like to see, we'll make sure that they're available. We also make sure that they're competitively bid as well. How is the department ensuring that consultants hired by the authority to develop county bid specifications are entirely independent from those bidding on county contracts? Contractors involved in the bid specifications drafting are not allowed to bid on the actual RFP that we will be putting out. The other question was, please confirm that the IGA's maximum compensation limits apply both to amounts paid by the authority and to the amounts paid directly to the authority hired contractors, and explain how the county ensures that total spending does not exceed the limit, since all payments are not flowing to a single vendor. So per section 3.1 of the IGA, the task order work performed under the IGA is from the spending affordability of the IGA, whether it is invoiced through the authority or straight to the county. The authority utilizes anticipated expenditures in their annual budget approved by the authority board. And the Bureau is also tracking all task order work for conformance to those budget limits that we have available to us. And I believe the last question is, what is the total amount the county has incurred to date under the IGA, as well as by its contractors, which may not yet have posted as expenditures in the county's financial system. To date, we posted $571,000 as a total, and the majority of that is for the cost of the bulk trash that we started in January. And then we have other smaller DOs with the authority. We had a DO for strategic planning, for landfill gas reporting, for a collection service agreement review, and of course, the larger one was for the bulk trash. Let's see, I think. The last question was, given that the county is currently in the second year of the contract, please explain why the amendment provides increased compensation for the first contract year. The bulk services may be expanded. We are looking to see, now that we've had the bulk trash in place since January. So we're looking to see if we should make some adjustments associated with the bulk trash. As you all know, currently right now, our residents have the ability to get 2 bulk trash pickups, but we are consulting with the authority to see if there is another option to maybe get more services, more pickup, or a different way of getting pickup, maybe on demand. So we're trying to review, give it a year, see what adjustments come through, how many complaints we get. Should those trucks possibly have cameras on it? Because some people say that they have not been able to, the pickup truck missed their pickup. So we're looking at other options. Should you have a camera on your truck so we know if that trash was set out in advance? So there's other options that we're looking at putting into the bulk trash procurement so that we can better the service for the residents. So that's one of the reasons why we're looking to possibly increase the costs associated with bulk trash. So those were some of the questions that came from the auditors, and I'll take any questions that you all may have.
Well, I thank you so much. I can tell you one thing, on a personal note. At one point, I was driving down the street and I saw some people with some stuff out on their lawn at the curbside. And I was thinking, are these people lost their mind? Like, what in the world is going on here? Then it dawned on me, oh, bulk trash pickup. They put in this stuff. And I was thinking to myself, like, somebody lost their mind putting a daggone sofa on the front of the lawn, you know. But anyway, any questions or comments from the members? Starting with, I guess, the auditor. Are you okay with the questions that were answered?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have a somewhat related question. First, I want to say that I've got nothing but compliments regarding the bulk trash pickup. People are very happy that the county has started this up after many years. I did want to talk a little bit and ask you about plastic bags. We know that you see many advertisements on television about the effect that plastic bags have on sea life. And also we know that plastic bags can play havoc with some of our, like if you're separating things, the machines get tied up with them. Have we in the county noticed a decrease in the use of plastic bags, let's say over the last year?
So I will tell you that as of April 1st, we no longer accept plastic bags for yard waste. And surprisingly enough, we had a lot of planning meetings leading up to April because we were concerned that the residents were not going to transition very well. But thanks to Madam AO, we had some extra money where we were able to give out paper bags the end of last year when the regulations changed, and then we were able to give them out leading up to April. We actually still have a few left at a number of different locations around the county. And the residents have been very receptive to not using the plastic bags for yard waste. So it's been impactful. It's been good for us in terms of being able to manage the yard waste a little bit better. We got a few complaints early on because, you know, when it rains and you have the plastic, you have the paper bags out there. You know, the haulers were complaining in a small way because it rained heavily the first week of April and those paper bags were wet. But we're working through the process, and I think it's going a lot smoother than we actually thought it would be for the 1st of April, I would say.
Got to have faith in people.
Yep, they've been doing a great job at it.
Thank you.
Councilman
Chairman? Oh,
Councilman Quirk?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple minor things. One is obviously solid waste. It's a big issue, we know, for the county. It's something we've all been wrestling with on the county exec side, on the county council side. And, you know, I do share Councilman Catch's comments that the bulk pickup has definitely been very needed and well received. So we appreciate your work there. I know sounds like a big increase, but when you're looking at it over basically almost 20 years, it's not as big as it appears. And then the plastic bags, Councilman Catch was talking about as well. I know the county council is looking at, you know, do we do a plastic bag ban? Do we do like a fee per bag like Howard County? So we're all talking about that among ourselves as far as maybe looking at that as good public policy, because plastic bags are terrible for the environment. I mean, you see them in trees every time the wind blows. It's unsightly, terrible. And it's obviously bad for the Chesapeake Bay. And quite frankly, I've been using reusable bags. And I find them so much better because like half the time you use plastic bags, they rip on you, they don't hold much. And so that's something I know the council is going to be talking among each other to try to come up with a consensus. Whatever that is, I'm not sure, but I do look forward to those conversations and hoping to help be one of the sponsors of the bill. Maybe we can get 7-0 to sponsor it, but we'll have to see what that means. And then just one minor local, personal, super quick issue for Ms. Walker is there was a study done on Old Frederick Road at Frederick, and it was done about 1.5 years ago, and I haven't seen anything result from that study. But it's like a hillside that has significant erosion, and like I'm worried that one of the trees is going to fall on one of the cars because it's such erosion that there's trees like literally just waiting for one storm to kill somebody driving down that road. And so we've had studies, but for the life of me, I've asked multiple times. I have never got a response back on what is the status of the study, what are we doing about this road. And so I just wanted to call it specifically to your attention, since it seems like it's kind of evaporated or something. And we spent money on it too, and it just, for the life of me, I don't know what the result of the study is. So I just wanted to respectfully request an update on what's happening there.
Well, Councilman, I appreciate you bringing it up. I will tell you that we've had emails back and forth as late as 12 o'clock today about that study. So I just need to do a presentation to Madam AO on the study and what was in the study. The area has been secured, is safe right now. It has been secured. However, I don't have a chief of highway planning, so I'm trying to wait to fill that position for that person to come on to carry out the recommendations from the study and present it to Madam AO. So we had conversations as early as today about that. So it has not gone on deaf ears. We are aware, and we are working on it.
And then I really do appreciate the work of Pete Chriskumis too for kind of helping dig into that more. But I mean, I'm no engineer, and I surely, the public works crews know a lot more than I do, but I'm taking pictures of trees that are leaning toward the road. And to me, it just seems like one bad storm and one of those trees is going to fall on a car, and that's going to be a major problem for the county. So it is something that definitely makes me a little concerned. All right, thank you, council members, for allowing me that specific moment.
Mr. Chairman, I do
Councilman
have a
Quirk,
couple
yes,
comments.
Ms. Rogers?
Councilman Quirk, we'll be happy to brief you on what the recommendations are, and we are working forthwith as expediently as possible in getting Ms. Walker's various positions filled. I don't know if you all are aware, but we literally lost one rung of leadership in DPWT in the last year. Literally all of the bureau chiefs elected to retire. And
Wow.
so it's been challenging to get qualified people to join the team. You know, it's a fabulous team, but because we haven't had a compensation study in over 12 years, we do have that in the budget for 2023 to conduct that countywide, so we can get some of these positions, these key positions filled, because it's very difficult to compete in the metro area for these highly technical and senior level positions. So we're definitely working on it expeditiously and happy to brief you on the recommendations even before we get there. So it is on the radar. But I wanted to go back for a moment to the expansion of the funding available for the authority. I just wanted to add two pieces for your consideration. Number one, our colleagues across the region utilize the authority. We're so pleased that we were able to have Ms. Walker appointed to the board, because the governor appoints the representatives from the various counties to serve on the authority's board, and they have a vote on various public policy issues and even on, you know, this contractual pieces. So we're very comfortable that there are experts at the table who are charged to serve in the role of the board of the authority. So it's not like it's just a independent group. It is covered, you know, and codified in state legislation in terms of how they operate and how they must be accountable for resource dollars and support. The second thing I wanted to share, just so you are aware, we desperately need that kind of expertise. When you bring together, you know, the brain trust of, you know, Maryland and other jurisdictions around solid waste, you know, the authority is the brain trust here in Maryland, and being a member of the authority, a member jurisdiction, gives us access to that authority, to the brain trust that is within the authority. So we're very, very comfortable, very, very grateful for the services and support that they've given us over the last year in helping us to think through, to benchmark, and to expeditiously procure, putting things on the street, competitive procurements on our behalf, because you well know how challenging our procurement team it's been through the pandemic to get things out the door. The county procurement team has had a 200% increase, and that was reflected in the procurement blue ribbon commission, how much work just based on the pandemic. So they've been very, very helpful. So we hope that you will support us in this request. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walker.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilman Mark?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Walker, for your presentation. I want to repeat what Councilman Quirk said about plastic bags, but also the broader issue of plastic pollution. All of us see this in our districts, the proliferation of plastic bags everywhere, the mounting garbage in our waterways. I know many of us lead cleanups personally, volunteers. We can't do it all alone. The county can't do it all alone. As I campaign more and more in the waterfront areas of the county, I'm hearing from conservative Republicans about this issue of plastic garbage in our waterways. And I think we just have to give this a serious look this summer. We have a lot of things we have to look at in this county. Public safety is the number one, but also I think this is an important environmental issue. So I'd be happy to work with the administration, Councilman Quirk, all my colleagues want a solution that brings down that level of plastic pollution. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Councilman Patoka here. I would just like to join Councilman Quirk and Councilman Marks with their concern for plastic bags, and a discussion that I hope we'll have in the future as a council to look at what type of bags and whether we move to paper or reusable, but to move off of the point we're on now. Because I agree with both Councilman Marks and Councilman Quirk. This is an environmental problem that needs to be addressed yesterday. And so now's the time for us to have a healthy discussion on it.
Okay. Any other questions or comment for Ms. Walker? Thank you very much, Ms. Walker.
Thank you, sir.
And we will move on to page 15. Mr. Steve Lafferty, Resolution 15-22.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, members of the County Council. The administration requests approval by the Council of Resolution 15-22, which would approve and prioritize 5 FY23 Rural Legacy Area applications to be submitted to the Maryland Rural Legacy Program. The 5 Rural Legacy Area initiatives have been very successful in working with landowners and acquiring easements, and then to monitor the easements. The resolution is required by the state since the county has more than one rural legacy area. And as I think all of you know, we go through this annually, and we continue to partner with a number of nonprofit sponsors and land trusts throughout the county who are really on the ground with us to make sure that the easements are fulfilled and that the work is being done as we need to in working with each of the landowners. The department recommends approval of 5 applications in the following order. The Piney Run Watershed Rural Legacy Area, which is in Districts 2 and 3. The Manor Rural Legacy Area in District 3. Long Green Land Trust, Long Green Valley Land Trust Rural Legacy Area, which is in Districts 3 and 5. The Baltimore County Coastal Rural Legacy Area, which we recently amended to change its boundaries. That covers both District 6 and 7. And the Gunpowder Valley Rural Legacy Area, which is in District 3. And the resolution would have us forward these rankings to the State Rural Legacy Area Committee for further review. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have Megan Benjamin, who heads our land preservation efforts in the county with me today if there are any specific questions that you'd like her to respond to.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Any questions or comments from the member? Hearing none, thank you very much, Director Lafferty and Ms. Benjamin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. We will move on to page 7. Councilman Crandall. No, I'm sorry. No. Before we get to you, let's move to page 4 with the Lawrence Richardson.
Good afternoon, Chairman Jones, members of the council.
Sure.
The administration is seeking approval of a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $95,586 to our childhood lead poisoning prevention and environmental case management program. The Maryland State Department of Health approved the expansion for us to utilize these funds to increase case management for children with elevated blood lead levels and or moderate to severe asthma. The additional funds will be used to pay the salary costs for one public health nurse supervisor, and 2 community health workers, and for durable equipment for children and families. So some background, Maryland Medicaid, in collaboration with the Maryland Department of Health and the Department of Housing and Community Development, secured administrative funds from the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services for the Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention and Environmental Case Management Program in Baltimore County. Our Department of Health, Bureau of Clinical Services, and Maternal Child Health will be administering this program with the goal to reduce the impact of lead poisoning and asthma in low-income children.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much, Mr. Richardson. Now we'll move on to page 7 and Councilman Cran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is a pretty simple bill. It will enable the property at East Point Mall that I know that a lot of you are familiar with, and certainly Councilwoman Bevins is familiar with. It will enable them to do a convenience store, gas station on pad sites at the particular site. So that's the gist of the bill. Very simple. Hoping that have my colleagues' support on it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Crandall. I see a thumbs up from Councilwoman Bevins. Any additional comments? Any of the members? All right. Got a couple of thumbs up. That's good. Thank you, Councilman Crandall. We'll move on to page 8, which is Councilman Jones and Matoka, the Board of Appeal. And I'll start out by saying members of the Board of Appeals work extremely hard. We're certainly appreciative of all their hard work. They came to me some time ago requesting a, I guess if you want to call it a desk audit, if you will, of their compensation and what they do. And I asked them for some specific items in terms of some comparisons and what they do and how they do it and how long they took and all of those things. They provided all the information. I shared it with all the colleagues. And this is the culmination of, after we looked at all the information, we decided that yes, in fact, they are certainly entitled to, in my opinion, increase in compensation. And that's the reason why we have this bill here. They still, in my opinion, the job that they do is extremely important to the county. And I only think it's fair that we pay these attorneys, which, they don't have to be attorneys, but it has come to be over a period of time that, writing these reports and writing these opinions requires some expertise, some legal expertise. So we've ended up in a place where they all are attorneys. And it's good that they want to provide a service to the county, but at the same time, their time is valuable and we should compensate them appropriately. And I still not even sure we are paying them appropriately for the job that they do based on the information that they provide. Councilman Patoka?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Jones, and thank you for bringing this issue forward. I join you. I'm pleased to join you in this effort. I think over the past few weeks, we've had a chance to see the caliber of professional that we have on the Board of Appeals, not only the past few weeks, but over the past few months as the appointees either are reappointed or newly appointed. But I think all of us would agree that we've got the highest level of professional in their field serving on the Board of Appeals and some level of adequate compensation I think is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Thank you very much. Next, I'll move on to page 10. I'm going to, I know Councilwoman Bevins is under the weather, so I'm going to ask you either give it a thumbs up or thumbs down in terms of whether you want somebody else to talk or do you want to talk? Thumbs down, somebody else will talk.
I can give a little bit of background if you'd like, Mr. Chair.
That'll be wonderful. Mr. Bosworth?
Yes, sir. Bill 2122, it amends, well, let me go back a little bit. Under the current law, subsection or section 253.1 of the zoning regulations, they are the use regulations for the ML zone, the by right use regulations. And paragraph I is the use regulations for residential uses in that zone. And paragraph I is a relatively recent enactment, and it allows residential uses under certain circumstances. And what this bill does is it just adds another condition to which residential uses could be brought. The bill that was sort of the beginning of this was Bill 6617, which allowed for residential uses on a tract at least 10 acres in size and part of a contiguous area of 200 acres of ML zoning west of I-95. Also the development at its closest point needed to be 525 feet within the business major town center core district of White Marsh. And what this bill does is it just extends that another 75 feet to allow additional residential development in that White Marsh near that BMCT area of White Marsh.
Thank you very much.
It also, if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair. It also allows the percentage of contiguous area of the combined tracts to occupy up to 11% instead of 6%. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. And I certainly took a look at that, and I'm certainly okay with it. And Mr. Councilman Marks?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have talked to Councilwoman Bevins about these bills. I've also met with the developer of one of these properties, and I intend to support it. You know, I said this before, White Marsh needs to go through a reimagining, like we did at Hunt Valley, like we've done at other older town centers. My preference would be to work toward an overlay zone so that we're not doing this piecemeal. But I also understand that there are market forces and demands that are placed upon us, and that should really be a long-term goal. So I just wanted to say that. Again, I think it's got to be a priority for the county government to really look at that White Marsh Town Center, which is now, approaching 30 years old, and to work toward that objective. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we see a thumbs up from Councilwoman Bevins. And any questions, comments from the members? I know we have a speaker. Mr. Castro?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Patricia Malone, registered to speak on this item. Ms. Malone?
Yes. Good afternoon, Chairman Jones and members of the council. And thank you, Mr. Bostwick, for that introduction. You stole a little bit of my thunder, but that's okay. You are correct that this bill basically originates from 6617, which I think some of the council were around for. At that time, my client, Chesapeake Realty Partners, had two properties that it wanted to put under contract that were adjacent to the avenue at White Marsh. With the ML zoning, the residential uses were not allowed at that time. So we came up with legislation essentially that would allow residential uses that were in close proximity to the BMCT, which essentially is the town core zoning. But the council wanted to make sure that this was limited so that not all of the properties around there would be developed residentially. So there were very specific restrictions with this in terms of, you know, the amount you could have within the total area in the White Marsh area that is zoned ML, and that's the 200 acres that we are seeking to expand it from the 6% of that area could be used for residential uses to the 11%. The project was for the Avenue Grand, which is now constructed. It is a beautiful, very high quality apartment project. And the developer has the opportunity to acquire two additional properties that are just adjacent to Avenue Grand. Those properties are currently developed with office buildings that are slowly vacating, and by the end of the year, those buildings will be vacated. And so the the developer has the idea to do another residential project very similar to Avenue Grand on those two parcels. So looking at this legislation, we were trying to figure out, how to make this project available. So that's why you see the strange, within 75 feet, you still have to have 10 acres in total. And then it still has to be within that ML zoned area west of I-95. So we have been asked the question, this is just for the White Marsh area. It does not apply to any other section of Baltimore County. And essentially, when you look at the map and you look at the area, there are very few properties that could take advantage of it. But the properties that are in question are directly adjacent to Avenue Grand. So we would ask for your support of this project so we can have another very high quality apartment project in White Marsh. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Long.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I ask a question of Ms. Malone?
sure.
Ms. Malone, my understanding is that the project, there were some modifications done so that the number of bedrooms, multiple bedroom units, was limited. That would help with the school situation. That's correct. Am I right?
Sure. You mean Avenue Grand?
Avenue Grand and here.
I understand that Councilwoman Bevins is interested in keeping the number of 3-bedroom units or not having 3-bedroom units. So yes, that has been discussed with the developer.
Yeah, great, very good. And I want to thank Councilwoman Bevins for working on that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, we will move on to last but certainly not least, page 1, Colonel Joe Conger, and with the police department and our abatement of public nuisances bill.
Thanks, sir. Good afternoon, Chairman Jones and members of the council. I am Colonel Joe Conger. I'm the Chief of the Operations Bureau at the Police Department. And I'm here on behalf of Chief Hyatt to discuss Council Bill 14-22, which would make updates to Baltimore County's existing statute related to abatement of public nuisances. As the chief referenced at the work session before the council on the 22nd of March, the current statute allows for the chief of police to order discontinuance of a public nuisance on the affected premise or the closing of the premise to the extent necessary to abate the public nuisance if within 24-month period violations have occurred on that premises that have resulted in 2 or more criminal convictions for public nuisance. Before such discontinuance or closure order can occur, the premises must be provided written notice of the hearing before the county administrative officer who makes the final determination. Unfortunately, the statute as it currently exists is just not usable for addressing issues where we are currently confronting in Baltimore County. The threshold of 2 or more criminal convictions really allows bad actors within our community months or even years of continued activity before we can apply that law. So the administration has received positive feedback from many community members for our efforts to address the handful of bad actors in our communities and those establishments that don't listen to safety guidelines or blatantly violate the law and impact the health and wellness of their communities. We also recognize that the bill that was originally introduced needed some work. We're greatly appreciative of the council's extension.
Yes.
And the administration's used that time for some significant overhauls to the language to address concerns about potential overreach and ensure that businesses are provided due process before being ordered to close or otherwise abate nuisance activity. And then last Friday, we provided the council with the proposed changes, which we also sent those proposed changes to the county chambers of commerce leaders. And we asked them to distribute it among their leadership. So I think I should take a couple minutes to walk through the changes. To start with, the scope of the legislation has been narrowed. We want to make sure that we're not inadvertently applying this law to cooperative and upstanding business owners who happen to have a minor crime occur on their property. And the proposed change would specify that the activity is only subject to enforcement only if that establishment is used for business activity that generates or contributes to the public nuisance. So this also alters the nature of the 2 police reports that have received a lot of discussion on this topic. A report can only be applicable if it specifically describes how the premises were used for the business that generates or contributes to the public nuisance. It's important, we want to draw a distinction between something like an active brothel or an isolated incident of assault, where it occurs in a parking lot that's not connected to the business. So effectively, this change means the police department would only be able to seek action against violators who were actively involved with criminal activity or willfully neglecting to address such activity. So those reports will no longer constitute prima facie evidence of a public nuisance. Instead, they will entitle the police chief to simply request a public nuisance hearing. And we've also shortened the incident time period for those 2 incidents from 24 months, as is in the existing law, to just 12 months. The nature of the hearings, we also significantly changed those. Instead of a hearing before the county administrative officer, these hearings will be before the administrative law judge in the Office of Administrative Hearings. The administrative law judge ruling, there's an appellate process that can go to the circuit court and then on to the Court of Special Appeals. And we really believe that this addresses the concerns over the original legislation, allowing for too much authority to be housed in exclusively in the executive branch. The hearings are specified to require a preponderance of evidence, of course, to prove the existence of the nuisance, and they also require live testimony from the police department. These changes shift the burden onto the police department for proving the existence of the public nuisance. And then in response to the ask for clarity on the timing of these hearings, we've also specified that the hearings must take place within 15 days following the request for a public nuisance hearing. We're also adding back in a 5-day period before enforcement to enable respondents to seek injunctive relief where appropriate. And we really hope that this strikes the balance that's needed between the police department's push for expediency in the name of public safety and the need for our businesses to have time to prepare for the hearing. The proposed changes would also adjust how an individual seeks relief from an order to close or abate a nuisance, because in the existing statute, it requires that those seeking relief would have to post a bond and submit evidence that they have made necessary changes and submit that to the chief. So the proposed changes will remove the bond requirement and will also direct individuals back to the Office of Administrative Hearings instead of back to the chief of police. And finally, we've heard from some community members that they are concerned about the equitable use of the law. And hearing those concerns, we've added language that will require the county to track data on the chief's request for public nuisance hearings. And it also requires that the county council, the county executive, the state's attorney, and the county attorney receive an annual report on that data. I want to really reiterate our appreciation for the council's consideration for these significant changes in the legislation. We believe they will build in due process for businesses without inhibiting the ability to use the law for its intended purpose, and that is to address the handful of bad actors whose action or willful inaction contributes to violent crime, distribution and or use of dangerous substances, prostitution, illegal gambling, and theft. Bill 1422, with the proposed amendments, will provide the police department with much needed tool to make our community safer. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Colonel. And we certainly appreciate all of the hard work and effort that has gone into amending the bill. Any questions or comments from the members? And I know we have a number of speakers.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
A quick question to Colonel Conger. Why didn't we go the route of a pilot program in which we could really focus on a few areas that seem to have the worst offenses?
Thank you, Councilman Marks. So right now we have existing legislation in this area, and we're really seeking to amend that to be more useful and effective. And that current legislation affects the entire county. This is not something that we really expect to be using with any kind of frequency. It's an important tool to have, but it also has a significant influence on, you know, on county-wide business operations. You know, for people to know as a deterrent that, you know, this exists out there, and keep people in line. You know, keep people in line that otherwise this might not come to their attention.
Okay, thank you.
So, Colonel, I have a question. Number one, how the existing padlock bill we have today, how often have we used that?
So I don't have a number for you, Councilman, but I can tell you that it's infrequently. You know, the conviction period requirement makes it difficult to use it in any kind of timely fashion. So I can't say that we've never used it, but certainly like these changes would make it a much better tool for us.
Okay. So I mean, is it fair to say maybe once a year? I'm asking, I don't know.
Sure. I don't think that we've used it that frequently just because of the current form. Not that we wouldn't use it in the new form.
So I guess the next question I had was, I noticed you reached out to some of the business organizations. Did you guys reach out to the Licensed Beverage Association?
Yes, sir.
So the people are regulated by a liquor license, and we have a liquor board that can shut them down. I'm just curious, why wouldn't we exclude them from this?
Well, I'm sorry. Are you ready?
No, I'm done. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to make sure I wasn't cutting you off. So again, it kind of goes back to the fact that we're looking at, you know, existing legislation and how to improve that. Like we have such limited use because of the legislation currently being ineffective, you know, as we described. And that legislation currently doesn't carve out, you know, licensed beverage businesses and the like. So it's not that we're looking to target any particular industry group, et cetera. You know, in the current form, this is applicable pretty universally to businesses that operate in Baltimore County.
Okay. All right, and I noticed that part of the amendment, or some of the work, took out the multifamily homes. Is that right?
Yeah, I think you'll see. I think you'll see that the definitions were kind of rescoped to exclude the multifamily establishment. That doesn't exclude that if somebody were to be running a brothel out of a particular unit, you know, this would still apply, of course.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments? I'll give the members an opportunity to speak after the speakers, if you like. On that note, why don't we move on to the speaker, Ms. Belcastro?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our first speaker this afternoon is Mr. Henry Caligari, if I said that correctly. Mr. Caligari?
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Chairman Jones and the esteemed members of the Baltimore County Council. My name is Henry Caligari, and I'm president of the Towson Communities Alliance. TCA is the umbrella organization that covers over 30 different community advocacy groups in central Baltimore County. And we are very supportive of Bill 1422. TCA's position is primarily because there are a number of, unfortunately not very many, but a handful of bad actors in the Towson area, particularly along Lochraven Boulevard, that have caused real problems for our community because fundamentally the business owners don't have an incentive to cut back on the behavior that occurs on their premises. This has dragged down and negatively impacted the neighborhoods in the area and has been very unfair to law-abiding businesses who have been forced to deal with other businesses in the area that aren't basically holding the people who work there accountable. So without getting too deep into the specifics, this has been a real problem, and this legislation helps to fix that. My hope and the hope of TCA is that the passage of Bill 1422 will curb the behavior or the lack of enforcement of the law or lack of caring by some of these businesses, and will help to improve particularly the Lochraven and Joppa corridor, as well as other areas in Towson too, and the surrounding communities, strengthen Baltimore County's economy, and reward businesses that are doing the right thing. And so with that, I would urge the council to support the legislation as written. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Calgary. Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Alcantara, next speaker, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our next speaker is Otis Collins. Mr. Collins.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman Jones and distinguished members of the council, as well as community advocates. My name is Otis Collins. I'm president of the Hillthorpe Civic League, and I'm here to testify in support of Bill 14-22. As been mentioned earlier, businesses are not encouraged to necessarily do good things in neighborhoods. And, you know, we mentioned bad actors, and as it relates to the county being you, when bad actors do bad things to you, that translates to low revenue for the county. And I think this bill, as a community leader, a person that works in the community, I'm in the grass, I'm in the weeds. When we have to deal with those businesses, as we have a few in Hillthorpe, it's difficult. It's frustrating to have to reach out to your constituents and explain why bad things are happening around the corner from their home. So this bill 1422 will not only give us the opportunity to work directly with our local police officers, but it reduces the threat of residents having to call the police in their community to deal with a problem from a business that should have all of the tools necessary to run efficiently and effectively. The bill also allows Baltimore County Police to target those businesses which are actively making our neighborhoods unsafe and kind of like shut them down. They are, in some cases, in my experience, they are kind of like a blight on the community. They generate very, very bad reviews, if you will, for you as a county government. The bad actors, they simply aren't winning any Emmys. They're not winning any awards. So I would encourage the council to support this bill 1422 and ask if this is something that you want in Baltimore County or in your community. Because look, folks, I'm telling you, if you have 5, 10 police cars at a business in your neighborhood and someone is selling their home in that community, they're not interested in purchasing a home. They're not interested in sending their children to the school a quarter of a mile from that business. So if you want an example of some of the experiences of what these bad actors are, you can come to Hillthorpe. I'll be happy to connect with you, take you through the community. I could point some of them out to you. But we need this bill. The police needs this bill. We support our police officers. They need our support on this. And you want Baltimore County to grow. If you want to be competitive with the people in the regions, as you talked about earlier, this is a good step. So I would encourage you to support Council Bill 1422 Thank you for your time and thank you for your consideration.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes, Councilman Quirk.
Yeah, just super quickly, I just want to jump in for one moment and just thank Otis for his testimony. Otis leads our Wilkins Police Community Relations Organization. You know, that's our equivalent to the PCRC for all the county. He really does great work on behalf of the citizens, and I think his testimony is important, and we should all hear what the citizens are saying. At the same time, you know, we'll definitely talk to our friends in the Licensed Beverage Association, see if there's other things we need to keep making this a great bill and something that it's a win-win for all of us. And I will back up Otis on this. As far as the citizens, we're hearing from a lot of citizens that when we have bad apples, sometimes it feels like the citizens feel like we can't do much about this. And for example, I won't mention the name. I will not mention the name, but we do have a business in my district that's almost one of the genesis of this bill, because we've had people shot, we've had people killed, and it's like never ending problem. And I had the chief of police out there, had multiple times the police came, and yet we still keep having problems. And so when we get these really egregious bad apples, we have to do something. We have to do something. So, you know, if there's other amendments or other things we should look at, you know, I think the council's open to that. But this is definitely a bill that truly has come from the citizens, you know, demanding something be done about the bad apples that problems keep happening, and we need more enforcement. Unfortunately, for just a very small percentage. I mean, the vast majority of the businesses are great businesses. They really do a lot of good work in the community. You know, if the police come out 1 or 2 times, they fix the problems. So this bill is not for those businesses, which are 99% of the businesses. This bill is really for the bad apples that we have continual problems and nothing ever seems to change. So I appreciate Otis's testimony, and I just wanted to put that out there for the council members.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Mark.
Thank you very much. I also want to say something here because I suspect a number of people will be testifying from the Towson, Loch Raven area, and I thank Henry Caligari for doing so. You know, we've had tremendous success in downtown Towson with revitalization. So several years ago, I put together a task force to look at the Loch Raven Boulevard, Joppa Road intersection. And we thought we had a lot of positive energy moving forward. The First Mariner Bank location is becoming a pediatric child care center. We had some improvements along Joppa Road west of Loch Raven Boulevard. And then all of a sudden, the Starbucks closes last October. I cannot emphasize enough the damage that has caused that area. It's not just because it's a coffee shop closing down. It's because that was the site of the Belloc Diner. It was a hub of activity, and now it is shut down indefinitely. And Jordan Levine, I think, is going to testify. He's chairman of that task force I put together. We may be stuck with an empty lot there for years. And when I went to Starbucks and urged them to reopen, they told me specifically it was due to the crime in the area. So, you know, this bill before us may not be perfect and there may need to be changes, but, you know, we need solutions. As council members, we have to be problem solvers. And that Starbucks closure is a terrible blight on that community. I don't want to sugarcoat it. And I'm hoping that we can come up with a bill that addresses all these concerns and makes certain that the communities around this county aren't facing what we're facing at Loch Raven and Joppa. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mark. Moving right along with the speakers, Ms. Del Castro.
Our next speaker is Aaron Greenfield. Mr. Greenfield?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Aaron Greenfield here on behalf of the Maryland Multi-Housing Association. I came before you last work session with a number of concerns related to this legislation. I want to thank the County Executive's Office in listening to our concerns, working with us. We very much appreciate their engagement, and we come favorable with the amendments that Colonel Conger outlined, particularly in the exclusion with reference to the definition of premises. I do want to raise one point that the Colonel referenced, that if there was a brothel operating in a multifamily property, that would still be captured. We, of course, would never want a brothel operated in any of our properties, but I'm not convinced that under the amended bill that would potentially constitute as a public nuisance. But again, want to reiterate our great appreciation to the county executive and his team for listening and understanding our concerns. And with that, we're favorable with the amendments.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Greenfield. And next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Certainly. Our next speaker is Jordan Levin.
Hello, this is Jordan Levin. Thank you very much, Chris, Mr. Chairman, and members of the council. And especially thank you to Councilman Marks, who is co-chair of the Job Lock Raven Task Force with me. I want to reiterate really both of what Mr. Caligari and what Councilman Marks has said. The bill as it exists today is almost meaningless, and I think Colonel Conger alluded to that in his testimony. It is entirely disheartening that the work that we've put in the task force over the last 4 years or so to figure out the Starbucks situation, to get this area in the Joppa Raven area back up to speed and back where it needs to be. It seems like we take one step forward and 2 steps backwards. The closing of Starbucks due to, and what they have told us, was due to the neighboring hotel, the Welcome Inn. And I will testify that's what Starbucks said. The crime, the drugs, the prostitution, the homicides that go on there were a blight to the community and their business, and they gave up. And the problem is that as it exists today, the bill as it exists today, we are not giving the police enough tools to be able to deal with this. They are reactive, and they do not have any means really to be proactive in this situation. I've seen this deteriorate over the past 20 or so years here, and it's probably gone on more than that. And we need tools. The police need tools. The community needs tools for us to deal with this type of situation. I can't see why the Licensed Beverage Association would be against anything that would help keep these communities in a better upstanding order. So I am fully and emphatically in support of Bill 1422. And again, I would like to reiterate how much I'm appreciative to Councilman Marks for his involvement and his incredibly hard work in what we're trying to do here in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Levine. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our next speaker is David Mister. Mr. Mister?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, thank you very much for hearing my comments that I have today. As you may already know from my prior testimony, I've been a lawyer for 47 years in Baltimore County. The first 6.5 I spent as an assistant state's attorney for Baltimore County, working at the highest levels of our felony trial unit and investigative prosecutions, including focusing on organized crime, narcotics, and gambling violations, very much the sort of things that this bill seems to focus on. So I bring a unique perspective, perhaps unique to everyone except Mr. Conger here, not knowing necessarily everybody who's attending this hearing. I also happen to be, since I've been a private practicing attorney, represented people in the restaurant tavern and liquor store industry for the last 40 years, including as general counsel for Baltimore County Licensed Beverage Association. So yes, I have a very keen interest in how this affects people in those industries. First thing I want to say is I want to commend James Benjamin, the county attorney, and the county executive's legislative office for listening to comments and criticisms we made to previous versions of this bill. I'm hoping that a lot of the things I see in there were based upon comments and criticisms that we made to the bill. I think it goes a long way to helping things. It really does. And I'm very pleased by that, but it's still not enough, in my opinion. There's still some grave concerns to have. Before I get to that, though, could I just respond to, for a moment, to Colonel Conger? I'd like to see the council and the county executive kind of take a look at the history of the previous padlock bill, its enforcement, what impediments they had, and not only that, but perhaps look at other similar types of ordinances and statutes in other counties and other states to see about the restrictions that should be in the constitutionality of theirs, because I think there's still some severe constitutional problems here. I am told, and it sounds like Colonel Conger agrees, that the previous statute was rarely used. Now, if the impediment is you can't get 2 convictions, I take exception to that. While I was a prosecutor, I probably got over 1,000 convictions between myself and members of my staff. It's not that hard. And we're not talking about the same person every time. If we're talking about criminal activity at a particular premises, if it's ongoing, it's not that hard to do. So I really wonder if what we're doing is expanding something that could have been effective if used properly. I have a couple of other concerns, and specifically to the language of the bill that I want to point out. We still have a provision in there that says that they're concerned about crimes of violence on the premises or near the premises. Now, there's no definition of what near is, so I guess that's going to end up to be a judicial determination at some point in time, which I'm sure will be controversial. There is still this situation of a police officer making a report. I have lived this for 47 years, and police officers' duty is to report what people tell them. It's not necessarily a determination that they even make in their minds based upon their experienced police practice as to whether a crime's occurred. It does require that they must explain why this happened and how it involves the premises, but I'm still not quite sure what that threshold of proof is going to be. I love the fact that they've at least included a burden of proof, a preponderance of the evidence. Let me drill down to what I think is my biggest continuing problem. I'm looking at page 9 of the last version of the bill, where it still states that, and I'm looking at line 9 on page 9, the lack of knowledge of acquiescence, can't speak this afternoon, acquiescence or participation in or responsibility for a public nuisance, and I'll leave that out, is not a defense. Now, the concern I have with that is it still doesn't require any kind of knowledge of forethought, guilty knowledge, criminal agency, or the like. If the purpose of this, and I can't really intuit what the drafters' intent was, but what I think they might be looking at is saying, hey, we've got a very provable case where a tenant at a premises or an occupant of a premises or operator is engaging in provable criminal activity on a regular basis, but maybe the landlord, the property owner, is not aware of it. That shouldn't be a defense to us being able to padlock the business. I'm not sure we have a problem with that, but I believe you could draft it better. Right now, the way this is worded, no one has a defense based upon lack of knowledge, lack of criminal agency. I think that's a problem. I think it's a significant problem, and I think it probably might render this provision unconstitutional. At least in this Easter and Passover season, it betrays our Judeo-Christian long policy of believing one is innocent until proven guilty. And it presumes guilt based upon the fact that somebody owns or occupies a space. That should not be. My last point, and thank you for being so patient, is that we should have a provision in the bill. And I like the fact that there is we first go to a quasi-judicial officer and then to the circuit court, but there should be a provision specifically in the bill that allows for either the Office of Administrative Hearings or the appellate courts, whether it be circuit court or later, have the ability to grant a stay of the abatement or closure order for good cause or in the interest of justice. And I think that would be essential because the damage potentially could be devastating to any business if later on it's found to not lie, but they've been closed for a year. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councilman Marks?
Thank you very much. Mr. I would like to thank you very much for your testimony. I've always had a good relationship, I think, with your industry, and I do think the bill is better than the one presented. What do you say to the comments from the people from Townsend and Loch Raven when they look at hotels that have had multiple years of problems and where the police have not been able to get convictions?
I'm glad you brought that up, Councilman, because I was going to include it, but I thought I was going too long. With all due deference to Colonel Conger, the police, everybody else, I believe that we've got an issue that's a failure of investigation and lawyering. The laws are on the books. They know how to do it. If they go out and arrest these people committing crimes and prosecute them, things can stop. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we need to have more funding for the police, but I believe the existing laws are there. It just requires a little work. I was a supervisor of many undercover investigations and large investigations. I even went out as a supervisor on some of these investigations in the field with the police. You do what you need to do. It's not that hard to go find somebody who's dealing drugs. It's not that hard to find somebody who's engaging in prostitution or gambling or the like, and certainly crimes of violence. I mean, unfortunately, none of us can have a forethought to know. We can't intuit when somebody's going to commit a crime of violence, other than maybe if they're hanging around with a gun or a knife outside or engaging in something. So all the police or anybody can do is respond to those criminal activities. Honestly, Councilman, I don't know what's happened and why that particular hotel, and I'm very familiar with that area, I have clients near there, why there hasn't been maybe prosecutions of people there, or maybe even an investigation to see if the management of the hotel is implicit in these things. Those crimes already exist. I mean, the crimes are on the books if somebody investigates and enforces it.
I think, and I'm not singling out one building because I think it's a lot of bad actors, but I think one of the problems has been finding the witnesses to testify, and I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, thank you for your testimony, and I think you've presented some very thoughtful observations that have improved the bill. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
I'd like to echo.
I see. Go ahead, Councilman Quirk, and then Colonel Conger. Did you have the name? Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Chairman Jones. I'd just like to echo Councilman Marks' comments and basically put it back to Mr. that I've talked to dozens of police about a specific bar I'm happy to take you to anytime you want. Just give me a call, Mr. We can visit it together. I've talked to police for the last 15, 20 years about this one business. I won't mention the name, but we all know who it is. And there's been shootings and we've had multiple problems over and over and over. And, I'll ask the chief, or I'll ask the captain of the police, I'll ask our administration, why is nothing being done here? And I'm consistently told exactly the opposite of what you're saying here, Mr. Misters, that police feel that legally their hands are tied and we don't have the stick to go after these bad apples. And again, these bad apples are 1%. I mean, they're really, but when we have a bad one, it can be really bad. And, we can talk about the specific business later if you want, but basically what you're saying, I'm hearing just the opposite from the citizens of Baltimore County. And I'm quite candidly hearing just the opposite from not just one police, but police over the last 15 years. They all know this business. They roll their eyes every time the name comes up. And I always hear the same thing, no matter which police officer that's rotating through or which captain or which chief of police, I'm hearing just the opposite respectfully of what you were just saying. So maybe we can go visit at some point as well. Thank you.
Councilman Quirk, can I respond just for a moment?
Yeah.
Thank you. First off, I would be happy to go there with you and have a discussion with you off the record, because I'd love to know. I am familiar with an awful lot of the establishments in Baltimore County from representing people in the business for 40 years. And, maybe together as we could do something. I will tell you that I am a little bit astonished because two things. One, if the police and the prosecutors can't cure a problem, how are the business owners supposed to do it? Now, in your case, you may be saying the business owner is implicit in this activity, and that's obviously could be a crime. The other thing that I need to point out that I know some of the council members may know, and maybe Colonel Conger knows, but the liquor board in Baltimore County has incredible powers. They're almost unbridled. And I go to the board every week with clients that get cited for what they call a show cause order for apparent violations. I will tell you, most of them sustained. And what the causation of it is usually is a police report or two from Baltimore County Police. The liquor board can suspend and revoke licenses. If you're a bar, your license is revoked, you're out of business. So I'm not sure what's happened and why that hasn't happened. We can talk about that being more effective. I have not found this liquor board, at least, to be the least bit timid about bringing people in. Maybe they bring too many in, but that's a different story for a different day. Let me just say this to you. I pledge that I will work with anybody in the police department, the council, Mr. Schellenberger's office to do anything for people in this industry, even if they're not my clients. And just so you know, again, I've told you I was a prosecutor. My oldest son is a police officer. He's a deputy sheriff, crime scene investigator in Loudoun County, Virginia. So I'm very sympathetic to law enforcement. I love them. Thanks.
No, and I really, Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate your comments. I mean, I find you to be a really good guy to work with, and Jack Milani, and the whole association are really decent people. And we have a few bad apples, but maybe sometime we can get Mr. Benjamin, Mr. Bostwick, the attorneys, along with maybe the chief or one of our police, and yeah, maybe we'll have a nice lunch at this place we continually have problems with. But I also think Mike Mueller does a good job. He really does a decent job. He does go after a lot of places, but we do have one continued repeat offender. And Jack and I have had many conversations on this one. The chief and I, the captains and I, the police and I, the community is constantly, and I mean constantly, upset about one particular business that just seems to be able to, just too many problems. So yeah, I look forward to that getting together, and I'm open to any conversations to make this problem. And Councilman Marks has significant problems, and I know every council member here has issues in their district that we'd like to see addressed and have a bigger stick of enforcement, so the police feel like they can really go aggressively only after the most egregious offenders. So thank you. I look forward to catching up. Thank you.
Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our last speaker today is Jack Milani. Mr. Milani.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. For the record, Jack Milani, Legislative Chairman of Baltimore County Licensed Beverage. Listen, I'm not going to get into the legalese because I have dealt with David a few times this week, and usually by the time I get done talking with him, I'm more lost than I was when I began. But I would like to thank the administration. The county attorney reached out to him. I think they made a lot of progress. He still has some concerns, but I just want to speak to you on behalf of as a licensee or a business owner. And I will tell you that in a lot of instances, the board has required cameras and outdoor lighting. And I think what we're finding is hopefully these people are cooperative. I know there was a situation recently in Councilman Quirk's district that my prediction they were going to get closed for a week. But after I sat through the hearing, there was no way to predict what was going to happen. You just happened to have two bad people that went to a place and unprovoked something went on. And quite honestly, that's some of the problems we're having is that some of the clientele has changed. And quite honestly, as I've said before, there was a time when I would go outside my place. I've been here 32 years. There'd be times kids were hanging out and I'd go run them off. I don't do that. And I don't think many of our folks do. So I think when it's a parking lot issue or what have you, we have to rely on the police. So I would hope that you guys understand that we did have a meeting recently with the chief and the colonel on a program trying to get a proactive situation where instead of the police getting called when basically everything goes sideways, we're trying to get the licensees to realize that they're a resource, have them interact, maybe improve lighting, have them come out and do a site visit and work with folks, because there is and has been a reluctance of licensees to call the police because it does land them in front of the board. And even if it's, no action taken, they have their legal expenses. So we are trying to change that mindset. And I will also tell you, if you look at the LBA, we don't spend money defending people that don't deserve it. So I just want to make sure people realize we understand the administration's problem, the police department's problem. We just want to put some type of long-lasting solution that does not have unintended consequences. I think we've come a long way, but I think, something this important, if it takes a little bit longer to get it right, we don't know who's going to be in your seats 8 years from now, or the exec seats 8 years from now, or the chief seats. So we want something that's very clear and is fair to everyone. And quite honestly, hopefully something that when people act up, you can throw the full weight of the law at them. You're not going to see us defending them. I can guarantee you that. Thank you.
Mr. Milani, thank you for your testimony. I just had actually I have a couple of questions, but I'll just ask you, number one, Mr. Milani, I don't have a lot of sympathy for bad actors.
I would agree.
And I guess my question is, because, it's almost as if I heard people testify about bad actors. We all don't like bad actors. But I do recognize, and I guess I'll let Colonel Conger answer this if you like. I do recognize that I understand why people would be concerned, because these businesses in many cases represent their life savings and their livelihood and employees that work there. And I'm just curious in my mind, a bad actor is one that says, I'm doing nothing. I don't care what you say. I'm doing nothing. What is the number? Is it a certain amount of money to say somebody's not a bad actor? Or is it only thing matters is the results? Because I'm here to tell you, I'm willing to do anything to cut down on the 50 murders we had. Me, the county government, the police department, the prosecutors, all of that, we couldn't stop the 50 murders. So I'm just curious, is there a certain number, or how do we decide if a property owner is cooperative with the police in terms of trying to cut down on crime? And at what point do we decide that they are cooperative, they're doing the best they can, or I know the ones that are totally not cooperative. You know where I'm getting at?
Absolutely.
Like this gray area.
Yep.
I'm just trying to figure it out for myself.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think what I would look at is the program that we're trying to work with right now that between the liquor board and the chief, I think would be beneficial, because our idea is to be educational and get out in front of it. Because I look at level of cooperation. Listen, somebody could come on my parking lot tonight and deal drugs and get caught. And it could happen again 12 months later and I could get dragged out in front of you. But I guarantee if I knew it was going on, my captain would be getting a phone call tomorrow saying, hey, I don't care what it takes, but I want some undercover in my parking lot. And that's, to me, what you're looking for. You know, you're looking for a level of cooperation. Now, for the liquor board and the police department with my industry, it's a little bit easier because they already got a hammer. They don't need this bill. They can bring us in on the show calls, fine, suspend, or revoke. But even with all that, we still have some of our membership that is afraid or reluctant. They'll call the police at the last resort. And that's a mindset I'm hoping that the program that they put together changes. But I do think it comes down to, if the business owner is not cooperative, then I think that's a problem, because I can't imagine why they wouldn't be, because it's not good for business. Nobody wants to come to a place if you have to walk through a parking lot of possible drug deals, or nobody wants to be in a place where there's fights or what have you. So, a short answer would be the level of cooperation they're willing to provide to both the police and the liquor board is how we would judge it.
So I appreciate that. Colonel Conger, did you have anything you want to add?
And Mr. Chair, I would just go ahead and add to that. Like, we obviously work in partnership with a lot of entities. I know Director Ferguson is on here. She was also part of the meeting that we had with Jack. And this doesn't take away from any of the efforts that we are, or processes, tools, et cetera, that we already have in place for licensed beverage establishments. It's an additional tool that applies, universally. And to some of the concern about, and specifically your questions, Mr. Chair, I would point folks to the bottom of page 9, where this isn't a unilateral action by the police department, right? We identify this, we work with our businesses to try to get ahead of this. And when we get to the point where, abatement and enforcement is required, we have to go before, and in this new legislation, we have to go before the Office of Administrative Hearings. And in this legislation, there's 4 factors carved out for the Office of Administrative Hearings to consider in their finding. And those are the things that would answer the questions you were asking, sir, as far as consideration of the severity of the violations, good faith of the violator in following the safety and security recommendations that we make and give to them, the history of prior violations, and of course, the impact on the safety and security of the community. So rather than like quantifying this into dollars or occurrences, et cetera, we've laid out, I think, some good guidelines for what we would all consider to be the value and the purpose of the legislation here.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Councilman Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've studied this bill, as we all have. I appreciate the concerns of the Licensed Beverage Association and regular citizens as well. But, a couple things occur to me, and one most importantly is that I've asked the police department and representatives of the police department, how do you deal with a string of hotels on a road such as Pulaski Highway? They've worked for years to establish relationships with that ownership and that management, and they don't need this bill. But those are people that have those owners and those managers, those hotels have agreed to work in concert with Baltimore County Police, and there are obviously some other establishments that aren't willing to do that. So I'm in support of this bill. I think it's a good bill. Maybe there's some details that we need to figure out in the next week or so before we vote on it. But it seems to me that this is another instance where the more cooperation between all of us, the better that things are. And I've found in talking with our police, our police department and our local, in the districts that I represent, that they've already worked this stuff out and they have cooperation with the business owners, and that's a beautiful thing. But it doesn't happen everywhere in Baltimore County, and I'm sorry that doesn't happen. So I think that this is a necessary tool that the police department needs to make our communities safer, better, and better for all of us. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to chime in.
Thank you, Councilman Crandall. Any additional questions or comments from the member? Councilman
Chair. Yeah, just real briefly, I do want to thank everybody for the discussion on this issue on all sides. I mean, one thing I'd reiterate, this is truly an issue that's coming from the citizens. Like, I'm hearing from this from constituents, especially on some of the issues that just never seem to go away. Saying that if somebody from the county exec's office, could contact Jack Malani, could contact Mr. No relation to Catch 22, by the way, and have these conversations, and see if there's like I would say to the Licensed Beverage Association is, well, what are some of your ideas to, maybe improve this bill or help the police department? Because I can assure you, I've talked to so many police on a certain issue that feel like their hands are tied and they don't have that stick. They don't have that enforcement that they want to have. And quite frankly, and quite candidly, I'll be the first to admit that, when we get into the legal nuances of this bill, I need to defer to, our attorneys. I mean, Mr. Boswick and Mr. Benjamin, because the legal nuances can get fairly complicated, and so that's truly a place that I need to understand better myself before I can vote on this bill. But I can assure everybody in the council, this bill is coming from the citizens, and this bill is coming from the police. And when I'm hearing concerns from the people that are protecting us day in and day out, our police that are dealing with these issues firsthand, and they're telling me one thing, and then I'm hearing from the citizens as well. That means a lot to me. And so I hope that between now and when this gets voted on, that the county exec's office can also reach out to the Licensed Beverage Association more, talk to Mr. Malani more, see if there's a meeting of the mind, see if there's things that we can all agree on, because there's definitely a problem out there, and it's something I'd like to obviously see more enforcement head to the bad apples and just take them out. So, all right, that's enough. But thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for. I mean, this has been a very good discussion, so I really appreciate everybody's views and comments for sure.
Yes, Ms. Rogers.
I just wanted to say we are happy to follow up with anyone else in the community that Councilman Quirk or any other member of council recommends that we talk to. The executive office staff will do that.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Benjamin.
I just wanted to acknowledge Councilman Quirk's point, and I and other members of my team will follow up with him this week to discuss more of the legal pieces that he has some questions and or concerns about. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, it's been a long day. Any additional questions or comments from anyone? I want to thank everybody for participating. We certainly appreciate all the speakers, and it is a I guess, I'm not sure how tough it is, but it is a tough issue because we do want to have the tools that's necessary to deal with the bad actors. One of the questions that I always have is, how do we identify a bad actor? I guess we know it when we see it. I remember when we had a particular roller rink in my area, and the person told me, the police had recommended certain things that were going to be extremely expensive. And he said he found it very difficult to do it. And that, it was basically very difficult for him to hire the people that they wanted him to have. So I get that. I understand all of that. And the bad actors we want to get rid of. I just want to make sure we're paying enough attention to the people that honestly are doing the best they can, and yet things happen beyond their control. And we not sort of hold them too accountable for things that they just can't fix. And to me, philosophically, I mean, I'm not going to get into it too much, but I understand the police officer's point of view, and I understand the administration's point of view, and I certainly understand the business owners who are legitimately concerned that something will be used in the wrong way that will cause them to lose their business. I'm gonna leave it at that, and hopefully we've come a long way. Hopefully we can come to some resolution where everybody's, is happy before we move forward with the bill come Monday. So any additional questions or comments from anyone? Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's point of view and their comments. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.